Welcome back to Court TV Live. Let's go back to Mississippi, where the state's rebuttal case is resuming against Carly Gregg. Jurors there have been hearing competing views about Carly Gregg's mental health around the time of her mother's March 24th killing. When the state painted a picture of this ordinary teen, their experts say that she was experiencing bouts of depression and anxiety, but the defense is claiming that this mental state was much more dire. They say she had been experiencing hallucinations, voices that told her to harm her mother. Let's get you back into court now. We are watching the cross-examination of a state rebuttal witness who already has been testifying, and the jury is now coming back in to pick it up where we left off. Dr. Amanda Gugliano.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Dr. G.
Good afternoon.
If you recall, during your direct examination, Ms. Newman asked you about information you received from me. Is it correct in my understanding that you called me?
Yes.
Okay. And I provided information upon your request?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And during an evaluation, when you're evaluating a minor or any person, who's in control of that evaluation?
I am.
And if you felt for any reason that your evaluation was being hindered, either by something with the location or anything else, what would you do?
I would try to take steps if I could to correct it.
Okay. And Dr. G, you mentioned on direct examination with Ms. Newman that there was an occasion in which I interjected or interrupted during your evaluation of Carly.
Yes.
And was that because there was a time or two in which I was aware that Carly was trying to answer a question for you that she didn't know the answer to?
There were a few times where you interjected to tell Carly not to answer if she didn't know, or to just say she did not know. And then there were times that you interjected to prompt Carly.
Yeah, to make sure you had all the information, correct?
I can't say what your intentions were. I'm just saying you prompted her by giving her, a word or something like that, or mentioning, remember this.
Okay. And Dr. G, you were originally there to do an evaluation on Carly's competency to stand trial and to determine whether or not she was competent at the time of the incident on March 19th. Is that correct?
Yes, her competence at the time to stand trial and her sanity at the time of the alleged offenses.
Okay. And can you, explain, but in the course of your evaluation, you ended up just evaluating whether or not Carly was competent to stand trial, correct?
That's correct.
And that's very different than whether or not she was actually competent at the time of the incident, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you have testified for this court once before at a competency hearing. Do you recall that?
In this specific case? Or?
Yes, in this case. Yes. And do you recall your testimony in that case that you informed the court that you stopped your evaluation because you became aware that medication might be an issue in Carly's competency at the time on March 19th, and you felt like there was someone else who could evaluate that?
Yes, it was my opinion that it appeared we had started talking, as I mentioned before, about what was going on with Ms. Gregg in the month leading up to the alleged offenses, and she mentioned her psychiatric medications and how she stopped one medication and started another a week before the alleged offenses, and that she had some reactions to those medications. So I recommended that a forensic psychiatrist, do the evaluation because I could not address whether any side effects or withdrawal symptoms may have been present due to medication, since that's not a specialty area of mine.
Thank you. I tender the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect examination.
Dr. Gugliano, in fact, you did try to question Ms. Gregg about whether or not she abused prescription medication, didn't you?
I did.
And she refused to provide an answer.
She declined to answer the question.
And are you able to go forward with any evaluation about medication when somebody fails to provide you information about it? Their abuse of medication.
If their abuse, no. No, if you're asking specifically about abuse, no, but there are other questions that I would have asked later in the interview about medications if I was evaluating her sanity.
And I believe you shared earlier that you did in fact render an opinion regarding her competency and her ability to recall facts, and that was that she is competent. Is that correct?
Yes, it was my opinion that she was competent to recall facts in relation to being competent to stand trial. I'm not saying how much she may or may not be able to recall of the alleged offenses.
No further questions, Your Honor.
May this witness be finally excused by the state?
Yes, sir.
By the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, y'all approach. You can stand in.
Thank you.
Something to remember about Dr. Gugliano, she's mentioning their competency, and that was at issue leading up to this trial this year. At first, the defense said she was not competent to stand trial, but then after Dr. Gugliano examined the defendant, the defense said they were going to stipulate to competence and focus all of their energy on this not guilty by reason of insanity plea in the case that we're seeing play out right now. Let's bring in federal trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg, who is standing by. Alexis, what do you think of Dr. Gugliano's testimony? This is obviously a state-centered witness and feels that she wasn't dealing with any issues that would have led to her being insane at the time, but she doesn't go there because she's focused on competency when she examined her.
Well, I think we can straddle the fence on this one, because I think that part of her testimony was supportive of the defense in the sense that she's saying we didn't address the issues that may have been in play related to that medication, the switching of that medication right very soon related to the timing of the incident. However, she is testifying that she did find not only was she competent to stand trial, but also she was, based on her opinion, sane at the time of the incident, which can be very damaging. And the defense is going to have to delve into that in a little more depth.
Yeah, maybe in not only cross-examining of perhaps this next witness that's coming, but also closing arguments, we may hear them focus on exactly, to your point, that medication. There was an issue that came up outside of the presence of the jury where the defense is saying you didn't turn over these text messages that were exculpatory. The state says they're not exculpatory, and you had them. Here's my proof. What do you think the judge should do once the dust settles in this issue?
Well, first of all, Brady violations are very, very bad. It's a very bad thing for the prosecution to do, as we saw in the Baldwin case. In this case, it's a question, was it basically, when you say exculpatory, more or less really important towards the defense of the case. So, I don't know. What I think he's going to do is I don't think he's going to dismiss this case based on that. But it is very interesting, and it could ultimately be important on appeal.
All right, Alexa, stand by. We have to get to a break, but those arguments outside the presence of the jury, we're going to hear more of those after this break. You're watching Court TV, your front row seat to justice.